Today, we are looking at stan culture, and what a more perfect place to start than looking at the group known as Swifties. This is not some hate or takedown video, by the way, but hopefully an interesting look at the way that fandom intersects with finances. So Swifties, which is a name given to the fans of the pop singer Taylor Swift, are a well-known group at this point, which is why I think it makes the most sense to start here. But don't worry, we will cover some other stan cultures shortly. Not only that, but we'll talk about how social media made stan culture even more extreme. How, whether you're an official stan or not, you can reclaim some control in your financial life. And of course, we will talk about how stan culture can cripple your finances and keep you poor. By the way, if you are new here, hi, I'm Kara, and I make videos on the intersection of money, media, and intentional living. Basically, I love talking about why we spend money, how to better save and invest, and hopefully wrapping it all up in some interesting pop culture. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, be sure to subscribe and check out my other recent video essays like Financially Auditing Carrie Bradshaw and The Crazy World of Live Shopping. And one thing we'll talk about today is how stan culture can lead to overspending. But luckily, there are lots of tools that help you take control of your finances, including today's sponsor, Rocket Money. Rocket Money is an amazing personal finance app that allows you to manage subscriptions, lower bills, build a custom budget, and grow your savings all in one place. I personally love their spending tracker because it shows me exactly where I'm putting my money and how that tracks against my past spending. It's been incredibly helpful to see the impact of my daily purchases. For example, back in January, I was eating out a lot more than usual, but it was always small meals out, and so it was easy to feel like that wasn't a big deal. But once I ran through the numbers on Rocket Money, I realized that that amounts to quite a lot when you add it all up, and I did not want to be spending that much on dining out, so I was able to course correct, and now I'm spending 40% less on dining out than I was in January. Rocket Money will also safely and securely identify recurring charges and cancel unwanted subscriptions for you with just a tap, so you never even have to get on the phone. So to save more and spend less, join the over 5 million members on Rocket Money today. Go to rocketmoney.com/Kara, that's C-A-R-A, or click the link in the description to get started for free. And thank you so much to Rocket Money for sponsoring today's video. Okay, so let's talk Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift and her fans have a long and famous history of holding a close connection to one another. Taylor Swift loves to build intimacy with her fan base with a history of listening parties at her home, gifts for her fans, inside jokes with the fandom, and of course, the famous Easter eggs throughout her work. With every one of those acts, a relationship outside of just music is forged, making it easier for fans to feel close with the artist, and maybe the human, that is Taylor Swift. And musically, Swifties resonate with Taylor's autobiographical lyrics in a way that feels like a friend reaching out to you, or an older sister talking you through a hard time. That relationship is perfectly captured in this meme I saw a few months ago about what it feels like to listen to a Taylor Swift song. All of this feeds into what I would call a parasocial relationship. And for those who don't know, a parasocial relationship is this one-sided relationship between a fan and a public figure, whether it's a musician or an actor or even a book character. And while the person having the parasocial relationship might channel lots of attention and energy into the public figure doesn't usually know that person even exists. Thus, the one-sided nature of it. A kind of mean, but I think funny example is Wanda having what's basically a parasocial relationship with Thanos in Avengers Infinity War.
You took everything from me.
I don't even know who you are.
Now, to be clear, parasocial relationships are not synonymous with stan culture, but I would argue that they are an important, if not essential, stepping stone to stan culture, because stan culture takes it up a notch. Honestly, it's a little scary at times, like when Nicki Minaj's stans doxed people recently, but the word stan is a cross between stalker and fan, so kind of fitting behavior. Now, stan culture is on the extreme end of the spectrum, but what I want to talk about today can really apply to fandom in general. And that is how fandom or stan culture or parasocial relationships, whatever you want to call it, how they can affect your personal finances. So let's go back to Taylor Swift and the first way that stan culture can keep you poor. So it can be awfully expensive to be a Taylor Swift fan. Now, obviously it doesn't have to be. You could listen to her music for free on the radio or YouTube or Spotify, but it can can be very expensive. Elite Daily did a great write-up of how much it costs to be a Swiftie in the Eras Tour era, and the lowest amount featured in the article was someone who spent $400 on their Eras Tour experience. But the highest was about $24,000 spent to see Taylor Swift in concert. That specific person described their experience as being motivated by, quote, a spur-of-the-moment thing because I felt FOMO, and it was almost the end of the tour. In case you want to hear more about FOMO, which is the fear of missing out, and how it influences your spending, I actually made a video on that same topic last year called How FOMO Culture Keeps You Poor, so go check out that video after you're done with this video. And the Elite Daily article did not stop there. There were tons of other revealing quotes from Swifties, including, quote, I feel like I've grown up alongside Taylor. And, quote, I don't regret spending the money at all. If anything, I wish I could have spent more on merch. And, quote, next year, I'm willing to spend more. This whole Eras Tour obsession definitely changed my view on how much I'm willing to spend on seeing her perform live. And pricey concerts are not the only place that Taylor Swift fans can part ways with their money. Last summer, many articles came out about the, quote, Taylor Swift effect on the economy. When the Eras Tour came to a city, its economy got a boost from the many fans coming in for food, parking, hotels, and shopping. But it is so much more than that, because Taylor Swift's fandom, specifically their spending power, has led to things like Taylor Swift-themed cruises, Taylor Swift bar crawls, and Taylor Swift brunches from local restaurants. I've personally seen several local ads for these Taylor Swift dance parties that are near me, and they're always sold out. It is an incredible phenomenon that not only demonstrates how perfectly Taylor Swift has executed her branding, not to mention just her talent, but also the economic power of fandom. The potential downside, of course, is that for every opportunity you have to part ways with your money, it's also an opportunity to live beyond your means. It's the age-old struggle between saving your money for a rainy day and spending money on experiences. And the emotions and arguably obsession that goes into stan culture makes that calculation all the more difficult, especially when your favorite is selling something that feels so important to the fandom. For example, recently Taylor Swift has been doing different variants of her upcoming album, The Tortured Poets Department. There are 4 different variants that you can buy each for $34.99 in vinyl, and when adding on delivery for each, that puts fans close to $200 spent on the 4 different versions. The difference between the 4, one song each. They each get a special bonus track and then of course different coloring for the packaging, but that's it. It's a decision that has fans torn, with some loving the variation and happily buying all 4, while others feel like it's a blatant cash grab that preys on their loyalty. Beyond Taylor Swift's artistic vision for the variants, the fleeting nature of these limited releases drives incredible urgency amongst fans. It's the FOMO that we mentioned earlier, the same type that had one Swiftie spending $24,000 on the Eras Tour. But there's also this sense of stan loyalty and connection that is wrapped up into these variants. Within the mindset of a parasocial relationship, it's not just some author or actor or musician that you're supporting, it's your friend. Sometimes more than a friend in the case of some people like Timothée Chalamet fans, or at least it feels that way. And side note, I won't get into it because it's a whole other can of worms, but I think there's something interesting to be said about parasocial relationships and the way that we don't just feel loyalty to the people, but we sometimes can feel a sense of ownership over these people. That's a whole other can of worms, so we're gonna just keep that one shut for now. So back to how it affects our spending habits. As a good friend, we want to be there for our friends, right? We want to support them in their endeavors and their dreams. And in the case of Taylor Swift, this is someone who we've had since we were children. She's been there for us. She's been a good friend. So when we buy her pricey music variants, we're not just buying music. We are showing loyalty. We are deepening our connection with our good friend. Swifties are obviously not the only ones who fall into this. Fans of K-pop stars or rock legends have this too. There are fans of certain actors that will see every movie they've ever been in, even if it's a brief cameo. And with social media making more people famous than ever, there are more opportunities to curate a stan culture that will hopefully buy whatever you put out. Though to be clear, just because you have a big following does not mean that people are going to buy what you put out. Exhibit A being the Instagram influencer a few years ago who had 2.6 million followers but struggled to sell just 36 shirts. And that is why having a loyal following or a stan culture is a critical piece. Okay, but let's back up for a second because we get it. The public figures, they put things out for us to buy and then stans might buy them. But like I said in a past video, influencers don't care if we go broke. We know this, so we know that we shouldn't feel obligated to buy something from someone that we adore just because they're offering it. The thing is that pressure to buy isn't just coming one way from the person. It's also coming from the pressure to conform, to be part of the in-group, aka it's also coming from other stans. Mob mentality is a powerful drug, and while on one hand it can lead to a fun us versus them feeling of a tight-knit fandom, it can also lead to hierarchies being formed with an in-group and an out-group. Basically, you know that meme that goes, oh, you're a fan of Metallica? Or insert whatever other band or movie. Name 5 songs of theirs. It's like this purity test of your fandom. Well, the same thing can happen beyond knowing song names. Are you a real fan if you don't go to the concerts, if you don't buy the variants, if you don't have all the merch? K-pop is a subset of music notorious for its die-hard stan culture. K-pop stans do mass buying and listening campaigns for their favorites, they obsess, and they support their idols passionately. But as Casey Yamamoto writes in her piece, Casey on K-pop, It's Expensive to Like K-pop, quote, although I had been a fan for a few months at this point, I felt as if my fan credibility was lessened because I wasn't as dedicated financially to the group's success. Yamamoto went from watching idols free on YouTube to throwing her disposable income towards K-pop CDs, merch, and brand collab products. Reflecting on the relationship between spending money and the hierarchy of feeling like a real fan, she writes, quote, am I more loyal to my favorite artists because I'm financially invested in their success? Am I happier when they do well because I feel as if I contributed something to them? Perhaps. Arguably, social media has only intensified this feeling because now we are more aware than ever before what other stans are doing. We know there are some splashing thousands on tickets and clothes. And one step more, we know the curated lifestyles of other stans and the public figure we adore. These are curated lifestyles, and the constant exposure to those can warp our sense of what is normal, of what we should be spending our money on to fit in. But our desire for acceptance and the pressure to conform goes beyond stan culture. Keeping up with the Joneses is a popular expression for how we try to match or surpass our neighbors and peers through materialism and status. We might buy a new car because our neighbors or friends did, and we don't want to have the oldest car of the group. We might move our family into some McMansion we can't fully afford because it makes us feel important and ahead of the game. The chase for more and just to prove oneself to others, even if it means living beyond your means, is a never-ending cycle that can leave us feeling perpetually dissatisfied and financially strained. So both buying things from our idol and feeling the pressure to have a certain lifestyle to keep up with the stans are ways that stan culture keeps us poor. But there is one more that I want to cover, and it's a shorter spiel, but I think it's a really important one to touch on if we're going to be talking about parasocial relationships and fandoms. And that is that stan culture can lead us to blindly follow bad and harmful advice. I covered this a bit in my Influencers Don't Care If You Go Broke video and my The Toxic Normalization of Online Gambling video, so go check out those if you want to see more. But parasocial relationships create this false sense of trust and intimacy between a fan and a public figure. The FTX scandal a couple of years ago was a perfect example of how important it is to do your own research beyond celebrity endorsements. Fans who bought into FTX because Tom Brady or Graham Stephan promoted it may have ended up losing all their invested money. We have to remember that people are getting paid to promote these things, which in itself I don't think is a bad thing because I think that there's lots of great products that are worth promoting and that people do promote. But at the same time, just because someone's promoting it does not mean that they are an expert in it. From the Kardashians promoting non-FDA approved dieting supplements that can cause diarrhea and dehydration, to celebrities like Jenny McCarthy and Jim Carrey kicking off waves of anti-vaccine sentiment. Yeah, come at me, anti-vax bros. To figures like Jimmy Fallon promoting NFTs, a volatile risk asset. Bottom line, when it comes to blindly trusting public figures that you like, don't do it. Now, I understand having a certain level of trust for certain people, especially if it's their area of expertise, but don't have blind trust. Make sure you do your own research and figure out if it aligns with your own values and goals and needs. And yes, that includes me too. Please never, never blindly follow anything I say or blindly trust anything that I say, because I could have have bad intentions. You don't know me. Or I could just have different intentions or goals or values than you have. Or I could just make a mistake because I'm human. And any of those things could happen that makes it so that I don't give the best advice or recommendation for your specific needs in your life. So please don't do it. Please do not blindly trust me ever, ever, ever. And when it comes to stan culture as a whole, I think it's important to remember that true fandom isn't about the dollars you drop. It's about the genuine connection you feel with the subject matter, whether it's sports or music or something else entirely. And of course, the community it brings together. Your legitimacy as a fan should never be defined by how much you spend or how blindly you follow. But what do you think? Are you a stan of something in particular, or are there other ways that stan culture can keep you poor? Let me know in the comments below what you're thinking and what topics you'd like to see me cover next. Thank you also to my patrons on Patreon for supporting this channel. I'm losing my voice a little bit right now by the end of the video. And thank you also to those who donate on Buy Me Coffee. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.